This series of tutorials will teach you the basics for Command Combat Civil War. This third tutorial will teach you the basic mechanics for playing the game, walking you through each of the turn sequences. Before you begin, create a deck of cards of the generals. This can be index cards, business cards, or whatever you happen to have. Each general has an initiative rating that tells how many cards that general gets. Write the general's name on as many cards for which he has an initiative rating. For instance, if a general has an initiative of 2, he gets 2 cards. If he has an initiative of 1, he gets 1 card. Once you have cards of all the generals, shuffle them all together into one stack, then move on to the first turn. Note that some scenarios have a special opening phase. Follow those instructions first, then move on to the first standard turn. In a standard turn, you have 4 phases: drawing of cards and movement, firing, morale, and command phase. Drawing cards and movement. Begin the turn by drawing the top general card. If the general has more cards still in the stack, he may choose to pass. If he must go, or he chooses to go at this point, he is activated. If the general is a corps or army general, he may move himself and his supply wagon, and he may activate one other general or unit at a cost of 1 command point, which is spent for the remainder of the turn. Meaning a general with 3 leadership will have a 2 leadership for the rest of the turn if he activates a general. If the general is a division commander, he and all the units in his division are activated. Each unit is a brigade, which is made up of several stands. These stands must remain together as they move around the board throughout the game. They are always in one of 3 basic formations: line, march column, or attack column. Line is the basic formation to fight. The unit moves a standard speed and fires with all of its units. March column is the formations units are in to move faster. They gain plus 1 inch to movement and may use roads, which give them another inch of movement. However, they are reduced to a firepower of 1 whenever they fire, no matter how many stands they have. A unit in attack column has 1 or more stands in the rear. They are less strong at shooting, but more powerful at charging. Units may also have skirmishers out to any side by placing 1 stand up to 1 inch away on any side. This slows charges against them and slightly increases their range, but reduces their effectiveness at firing. Units may also be in disorder, but they do not choose to be in this condition. This happens when they have difficulty, usually with their morale. This is revealed by having them scattered slightly in whatever formation they are trying to be in. Artillery is a little different in that they operate independently, meaning each artillery stand is on its own. They are either limbered, meaning they move faster but cannot shoot, or unlimbered, meaning they can shoot but move very slowly. If they are in disorder, they simply turn away from the enemy and are silenced for the turn. Units move a number of inches based upon their type. Infantry moves 6 inches, cavalry moves 12 inches, artillery moves 5 inches when limbered and 2 inches when unlimbered, wagons move 5 inches, and generals move 15 inches. These movements are affected by terrain. Every standard piece of terrain, such as a hill, creek, a fence, etc., reduces the speed of a unit by 1. Woods reduce the speed by half. Heavy woods reduce the speed by 2/3. A unit always moves at least 1 inch. Charging takes place during the movement phase. There are a number of steps to charging, so there will be a separate tutorial for that. When a general chooses to move, place his card in plain sight so when his card comes along again, you know to ignore it. When all generals have been activated in a turn, the movement phase is over and it's time to start the firing phase. Firing. Each side decides on targets for each of their units who are in range to fire. No pre-measuring is allowed, so when a target is declared, if it turns out to be out of range, the shot is wasted. When infantry or cavalry fires at a unit, count the number of stands firing. Now add or subtract this based on the chart for the circumstances. This is typically -1 for each difficulty and +1 for every bonus. For instance, -1 for movement, -1 for woods, +1 for being a veteran, and +1 for being at close range. Place the final numbers in front of the target. This is your firepower number. If a second unit fires on the same target, do not place a new die in front of the unit, but instead raise the number by the amount the new firing unit is placing on it. This number will always go up at least 1, as long as the firing unit is in range, even if the firepower number should go below 1. Firing with artillery is slightly different. There are 3 types of artillery in Command Combat Civil War: smoothbore, rifled, and howitzer. Smoothbore has a base firepower number of 3 at close range, 2 at medium range, and 1 at long range. Rifled has a base firepower of 1 at close range, 3 at medium range, and 2 at long range. Howitzer has a firepower number of 2 at all ranges and ignores terrain modifiers. No matter how many points are placed on a unit, the firepower die never goes over 9. Any amount of points placed on a unit beyond 9 are wasted. When all units on the board have had a chance to choose a target, go through each one, rolling a separate die and comparing the result to the firepower die. If the result is equal to or less than the firepower die, the unit is hit and takes a half stand of damage. Replace one stand with a half stand and place a dead marker underneath. If the roll is 4 or more below the firepower number, the target takes a full stand of casualties, and if the roll is 8 below the firepower number, the target takes a stand and a half of casualties. After a unit is fired on, place the firepower die behind the target, adding 1 if the unit is green, and 1 for every half stand of damage it has taken. Any general who is within 1 inch of a unit must roll to see if he is hit. If he rolls a 0, he is hit, and must roll on the general hit chart. Now we move on to morale. Generals who are not taken out of the game may reduce the morale die of any unit by his remaining leadership, which he can use to reduce the morale die on any unit that is within an inch. If there is more than 1 unit within an inch, he may split these points among the units. All units roll against their morale. If the player rolls higher than the morale die, the unit remains as it is. If the player rolls equal to the unit's morale die, it goes into disorder where it is. If the player rolls below the morale die, the unit moves back a number of inches equal to the difference of his roll and the morale die, ending in disorder. If the roll is 6 or more below the unit's morale die, the unit routs. It loses a half stand and moves the number of inches by which it missed the roll turned away from the enemy. After each unit rolls against its morale, reduce its morale die. This is usually 2 for units in order, and 1 for units that are in disorder or are routing. Each turn a routing unit fails its morale, it loses half a stand but leaves behind no dead marker. Finally, there is the command phase, during which any record keeping needed for the game is taken, and a victor is checked to see if anyone has won the game. Also, the corps generals may send out new orders, and/or division generals may attempt to change their own orders. This will be further explained in the next tutorial, Command Colors. To see more tutorials on everything from creating your army to using it in battle, check out our other tutorials and visit us at www.commandcombat.com. Happy gaming, everybody!